it's not about necessarily the style that you have in the result, but the style that you have in the relationship in the editing room.
Hello, and welcome to Cut to Reveal, the podcast where we discuss the editing art form and or the hurdles that come with that career path. Ricky, do you want to give us more context for today's interview?
Yes. So today on our episode, we talked to Audrey Simonaud, who's a French editor from Paris, who kind of cut her teeth as an additional editor on Taken 2 before she became chief editor on Taken 3. And most notably, recently, she worked on the Netflix show Lupin, or if you're French or want to pronounce it correctly, it's Lupin. It was great talking with her because as most of the higher level editors that we talk to, she's very gracious and she's very down to earth and very approachable. And so the conversation was awesome.
And very insightful as well. And actually, Audrey is the second woman on our podcast, and we want to have more of them.
For sure.
Most editors were women in the past.
The classics that people talk about were all edited by women.
Right now, there is probably a good balance. I don't know, maybe even some people say that it's like mostly male dominated. Although I'm not sure, to be honest. Like, you know, women's sensitivity is something that has been valued in the editing room for a long time. Martin Scorsese, for example, he said that he likes to have like a women's sensitivity in the cutting room. That's why I think like women are very valued in the editing room, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a different perspective for sure that is needed. And it's funny because Audrey mentions it also in our interview with her. And with that, let's roll the tape.
We are very glad to have you here.
We are. Very excited. And we're going to be asking you all the questions because we want to know how you got to where you are so that we can hopefully someday we can be doing the same thing.
Exactly.
Hopefully, I wish you the same. I'm quite lucky, I have to say.
Just give us some introduction for the listeners. You know, how you got into editing, how you got excited about editing.
Okay, so it started like when I was at school at 15, I would say. I was mostly into arts and drawings and paintings before, and I was intrigued by cinema. I think it's music that gave me the curiosity of making cinema, because when I was hearing songs or I was like picturing scenes, or I don't know, I had images in my head. So I chose to study that part, the cinema lessons, and that's how I got the basis. And then I decided, I wanted to try to be an editor, and that's what I did. And I graduated just a 2-year degree that's called the BTS. It's mostly a technical degree. And right after that, I was hired as an editor in a company that was doing trailers for movies, mostly. And so I was employed here. I was not a freelance. I was really an employee for 4 years. Once I had the impression that I already knew about it and that I was not learning anything new, I decided to quit and to see what would happen.
What a good decision.
Yes, I think it was. And many editors that was working in that company were freelancers, and they gave me contacts to work in the places they were working to. At first, it was mostly in trailers, but for TV channels and stuff like that. And I started doing a bit of corporate too. And I met a director who was filming a lot of concerts, so music shows. And we got along pretty well, and I followed him on many projects. And I started to work for a production that was doing a lot of TV shows, but mostly around music, some documentaries too. And one day I got a message, a Facebook message from an editor that I didn't know that was working for EuropaCorp. And he was working on Colombiana, a film by Olivier Mégaton, an action movie. And he was looking for like additional editing while the shooting was still happening to be able to have a continuity, a complete continuity before the director was coming in editing room. And that's what I put my first feet in the narrative and feature experience. And I was supposed to stay just 2 weeks. I stayed for 2 months. And as it was doing good, the next year, they called me to make like the first cut or the assembly cut. I was not chief editor at the time for Taken 2, also directed by Megaton. Yeah. And it was a great experience too. And then EuropaCorp produced another movie and they asked me if I wanted to be the chief editor of this movie. And it was 3 Days to Kill, a movie directed by an American director who's called McG. I don't know how to say it properly in American. And that's how I got into feature films. And then other French productions called me to do very different kind of movies, not only action movies. So that's how I got here. And in between movies or in between series or TV shows, I still do sometimes trailers or concerts or, anything I'm available for.
Yeah. Do you have like any movies that influenced you, the most in your early days?
I had movies as a teenager that gave me the will to be into cinema. It's really basic, but I think the one that really opened me to, to cinema passion is Titanic.
That's a great film. That's a great film.
Yes, it is. I've seen it many, many, many times. Maybe 4 years ago, there was a concert show with an orchestra and the movie playing at the same time. And I went to see it and it was really cool. I still love that movie that much.
It's not a cliche for me. It's not. I love this movie as well. I've seen it 3 times as well, I think. So
yeah, I don't know why this one, but so many people saw it that it's not very original, but maybe. But then I don't know, like big movies like Kubrick's one, and also I know that there's a lot of French people that don't like French cinema. Because they think it's a little bit old school, maybe a little bit boring, and I think I really do love French cinema. So, and at the same time, there are a lot of big classics that I never saw sometimes, and that I'm ashamed about.
But you're still a great editor anyway.
Yeah, exactly. It's not possible to watch everything, so you have to make choices and prioritize things.
And when I was a teenager, as long as I was having the cinema lessons in high school, I had a card that allowed me to go in the small cinema of my town for free. So every week, they were releasing like 1 or 2 movies, and with my friends, we went to see all of them. And sometimes we really didn't know what we were about to see except for the title. So it opened me to, it was an independent movies theater. So I saw movies from all around the world and sometimes movies from Cannes. Yeah, that was a really good time.
Yeah. I was wondering if you would name some famous action movies, because I was wondering were you into action movies very early on, or is it just something that came to you?
No, it's funny because the movies that I worked on or that I really enjoyed editing are not necessarily the one that I'm fond of as just a person. Like when I watch movies by myself, it's two really different pleasures, I would say. It's really cool when the two match.
Yeah.
But it's not always the case. But I don't watch that much action movies. I mean, I watch the big ones like the James Bonds or the Mission Impossible or stuff like that. I don't watch that many action movies.
I get it. Totally.
That's interesting.
It's funny because like you're the second woman on our podcast, and
Yes.
both you and Francis Parker, who I interviewed on the episode 4, I think, are known for action movies actually, because Francis is known for Band of Brothers. So she had Spielberg himself saying to her that, boy, you can cut action. Like, girl, you can cut action. Like, so.
Yes, that's funny what you're saying, because when I was editing Taken 3, we went to Los Angeles to finish the editing because we had to present it to the Fox Studios. Luc Besson was living there at the time. So we were doing some test screenings. So we went there like for 3 weeks to complete the editing. And when I arrived, I had an assistant editor that was local, and we already maybe wrote some emails to each other. But when I arrived, I was quite young. I was 30 at the time. He was like, "Who are you?" I mean, I'm Audrey. I'm the chief editor. He was like, "What? But you are so young." And after when we got along and everything and start to meet, he was like, "But you're so soft and sweet. And you are editing like big action movies, like badass stuff." And I was like, "Yeah, but I'm not at all badass in real life."
That's fantastic.
Nice.
That's what's funny in editing such scenes or big, like, I don't know, like very violent scenes, or it puts you in a mood like almost you are not acting yourself, but you have to put yourself in a position where you have to imagine how it would feel.
Yeah.
And sometimes you go out of the editing room and you are like angry and you don't know why. And it's just because you identify to the character and to the scene.
That's
Perfect.
funny. That's funny.
By the way, we got contact to you from Erwan, who is our listener
Yes.
for some time now. We also had him on the podcast, and he actually asked me to ask you a question. So he wants
Yes.
to ask you, how do you like deal with being a woman in, like a male-dominated industry, especially because you're editing action movies?
I think regarding that question, I had been mostly lucky through my experience, because I never felt, to be honest, like misogyny or I was quite welcomed by the directors I worked with, because it can sound like cliche, but sometimes they wanted also to input some sensitivity, or I don't think it's only female quality, but for some reason they were quite comfortable to work with a woman to be able to not only be on the masculine side.
Yeah.
That's great.
Maybe just one time I remember I was working on a new movie, and I was with the director, and a producer came in and told the director, "You are so lucky because you have the most beautiful editor." And I was feeling uncomfortable because I would have much liked him to say, "You have the best editor, but not I don't care about that." And I think he doesn't care too.
Yeah.
But that's a really small scene.
Yeah. Women actually are known for good action movies. So, Raging Bull, Thelma Schoonmaker, and...
I also have cats. He wants to participate.
For our listeners, Audrey's being attacked by her cat. Or trying to be cuddled to death right now by her cat. So
Yes. I got a second one, so wait for the second one.
So talking about Lupin, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing
Lupin?
correctly, but
Lupin. In French, you say Lupin.
so you edited 4 episodes, right? Four chapters.
Yes, correct.
Did you come in because somebody else fell off or got sick, or they were just like, this isn't working out with this editor?
No. Actually, I remember when I first heard about the project, it was pre-production. I remember calling a woman that's called Amélie Dibon that works at the post-production Europe at Netflix, and she used to be head of post on a movie that I edited before she was hired by Netflix. And I called her saying, if you are looking for editors, I would be interested in the project. But she told me the editors were already booked for the first episode because Louis Letarrier had already his, some editors that he knew, I guess. And then they were a little bit out of schedule, and they started looking for other editors for the next episodes. And that's how I came in, because the head of post, whose name is Pierre Tissot, who was running the post of the show, he called me because he had heard about me from several people. And also he knew by that woman that I maybe called like maybe 5 or 6 months ago to say that I was interested in the project.
That's awesome.
Amazing.
My first day of editing on Lupin was supposed to be on episode 5. And that's the day the lockdown was announced in France. So in the evening, the technicians of the post house came in with the Avid stations to bring them at home. And I started working on it like alone with like many people. But I couldn't really complete my episode because there were missing scenes that had to be shot like 3 months later when the shooting could start again.
Wow.
What was your experience then? Like editing remotely? Like, did you communicate with the director or a showrunner? I'm not sure which one you mostly worked with.
At the time, it was with the director. The director for my episode was Marcela Said, and we had never met before. So we talked on the phone a bit. I was sending her some scenes, like first cuts of scenes. She was giving me notes, and a little bit just before we broke the lockdown, she came to my house and we worked a bit together, and then we got back in editing rooms. And the producer came in, and the showrunner was here too. So first there was the director's cut, and then also the producer's cut, and then the first cut that we sent to Netflix.
Okay.
So you said that you worked with directors. You worked with a director directly with Lupin. But you worked with 3 different directors, right? Because you had 2 for 2 of the episodes, and then 2 different ones for each other episode that you worked on.
Exactly.
How was that experience working with, and then I guess just this is kind of like a general question of, you're working with a director, how do you cultivate or create that relationship, like a good working relationship with these directors?
You mean on Lupin or generally?
You can start with Lupin or any other.
But in Lupin, it's like in series, it's a bit different because you don't have that much time together. I mean, because you not necessarily go through every scenes in detail. Sometimes you do. Depends also on the directors. It's a difficult question because it depends on every director, I would say. Sometimes the relationship is like in a click. Sometimes it takes a little bit more time. Depends. You have directors that want to be in the editing room all day long. Sometimes you have other ones that cannot be there all day long because they are, I don't know, they are preparing a new project, or they are also producing. Or
when you're working with a new director, then are you just kind of, what they say, just like reading the room, just like following their lead, and then when you feel comfortable to interject, then maybe then you're kind of like...
Generally, that's it. But on Lupin, it was a bit different because when I started working on episode 7 or 9, I already had the experience of the previous episodes. So let's say I would have a little bit of step ahead regarding what Netflix would ask maybe to change, or I felt like I had more freedom in episode 7, for example, because I already worked on 4 and 5, because I knew that I could guess that from the first structure, for example, they will ask for more clarity, for more, I don't know, mostly clarity. So when I was watching the first assembly of episode 7, I immediately proposed, okay, we should maybe intercut something, maybe put that in the beginning. Like, I could feel that I had more, not power, but that they could trust me about my experience of the previous episodes. Which I did not have on the first episodes that I cut, because I didn't really know the process at the time of the validations and notes and changings and freedom that we had regarding the scripts, for example. So I feel that I improved with the new episodes.
That's kind of unique for TV shows, because like usually, you know, the director is like almighty God who knows everything, right? But for TV shows, quite often, like, you know, editor who has been there for a while, has edited a few episodes, knows much more about the project, the TV show, than actually a director who sometimes, like, you know, just comes in to just direct 1 or 2 episodes, right, in a series.
Yes, it's very different, because I think it was probably different with the first episode with Louis Leterrier, because he had to put his style in the show. But then the next ones, we had to follow the way that was already printed in the first episodes. So it's not like we had a big freedom of style, or I mean, suddenly we couldn't do like an independent show or whatever. We had to stick to the style that was created in the first episodes. So that's, in a way, that's easier when you start editing not the first episodes of the show, because you follow a lead. So
by the way, did you have like an assistant editor on Lupin?
They were shooting like 3 or 2 episodes in time period, and so we had several assistants dedicated to specific episodes, like dedicated to 3 or 2 episodes.
Because I'm wondering, like, a question I like to ask, like, how do you work with your selects? Because, like, you know, I imagine like an assistant would do some of the selects work for you, but still, like, you have to do your own selects. So how do you work on your selects?
I do my own selects, because when I start a scene, I don't have a way to edit it in mind. I just follow what the dailies, what the takes give me. We have different methods as editors, so I can only speak for myself. I watch everything, and as I'm watching, I put an in and out on little bits that I like, and I put them in the order of the scene. And once I've done that first selection, I watch this selection, and that gives me ideas for how I want to match them together. I'm not asking a lot of selections, but sometimes what I ask for when we don't have that much time is to have a first cut or pre-cut, because then it's easier to go look into the dailies once you see a first work, even if you want to change takes, but sometimes it helps you go faster. That's what we do on the show that I started 2 weeks ago. because the shooting is over. So now we can ask the assistants to help us by doing a first cut, and it's much more fun for them. But the problem on Lupin is maybe they didn't have that time to do that, because they have to manage all the technical stuff and the exports, the subtitles, things for Netflix, for the validation, and for the sound, so that could happen, but the short time of the process, of the editing process.
Doing your first draft cut, right? Do you usually do just like a script assembly version and then you move on from that, or do you right away do you do like your vision right away?
No, I do. I think we are due to make the script version first.
Yeah.
Even if we already know that something are gonna be totally changed or cut out or whatever, but I think it's cool to have that. I mean, to start from the script version.
Yeah. Like it shows respect to writers as well, I think, right?
Yes, of course, and we owe that to either the director or the writer or the producer. I mean, sometimes even if we propose something shorter or different, you can do both versions, because if they want to see the original version, you have it. So I don't think it's a waste of time to do that.
Personally, I love this approach the most, where you actually you create a script version first, but you have another version. If there is something that you would change right away, you have another version in the backlog. And watching it with the director, you can point out I again, like my experience is limited, so I've done it only for short films, but I like this approach the most, where you actually respect the script, but also like work on variations on the side. Yes,
and you never know which way you are gonna be in the end of the movie. And sometimes, I don't know, for a feature film, for example, you watch the assembly or the first cut and everybody agrees that you have to cut that out. We don't need that, it's repetitive or it's bothering or whatever. And then, I don't know, 1 month later, you have 13 minutes out of the movie and suddenly you need some information or you need some transition or you miss something and you're like, let's go back to the assembly. Yeah, that's exactly what we need now because of the work we did in between. So so it's good to know that you have that as a backup, because sometimes you will need the material, but way later than you original thought.
That's a very good point.
Also, at the same time, I feel like when you're doing it that way, then you have an idea of like, okay, this is the rules because this is the script that I'm following. And now I know the rules and now I can break them. And now I can do something different knowing that this is like the base that I have.
And sometimes, I mean, if you have a director that wrote the movie, I mean, it would be too violent to cut so much things at the first step of the process.
What advice would you give to someone, who did like a fair amount of editing in the past, but wants to, have that break into feature films and narrative work?
I don't know.
That's fair.
No, because there are so many ways to get in. Maybe not try to be an assistant editor on feature if you've been already editing for 10 years or 15 years, because I feel like today, and that's an advice some assistant editors gave me when I wanted to quit my first company. He told me, if by any chance you want to be a feature editor, don't start over by being an assistant, because an assistant editor today is like, it's a job, it's a complete job in itself, and you will have difficulties to then be seen or trusted as a chief editor, because it takes a long way, because it's not exactly the same way to work. Because if you stay an assistant too long and you're not that young anymore and you are really willing to be an editor because you are already an experienced editor, you will get bored, I guess. So
actually, it makes me very happy to hear you giving this advice, because I'm actually like, the advice that I often hear from editors who got there is like, do assistant editor gigs first, and with time you will advance to an editing position. And I'm like, I don't want to, like, so that's very comforting for me to hear that advice of yours.
So maybe the advice would be that you can meet other chief editors or post supervisor that when they need additional editing maybe or help on a project that they are already on, so you are really editing, and then they can see your work, so they can think about you for a next project that they cannot do. Or
makes sense.
When I was younger, I was never in a situation where I was assistant editing for anybody up until like deeper into my career. But I found that once I started assistant editing, then the universe was like, give him all the assistant editing jobs. And then I just kept on getting assistant editing jobs. And I was like, the money is good because it's consistent, but it isn't editing. I'm basically just like logging clips and preparing something for somebody. And it's great if I want to listen to music and listen to books on tape or whatever, but it's not good for like being creative. And then and then it got to the point where I was like, I got to change this up. I need to start editing again. And I basically like stopped taking any editing jobs and was just like, I'm just going to take whatever. And then as soon as I got my first editing job, then the universe was like, give him all the editing jobs. And then I started getting more editing jobs and then it was fine. But I think that it's weird like that, where there's that aspect of people see you as an assistant editor and they're like, oh yeah, I know this assistant editor. And then they're just giving you all this assistant editing work.
Yes, because if you're good at your job, people will want good assistant editors. So they will call you because you're good at your job. So they won't call you for being editor because they will miss a good assistant editor. So
it's like a double-edged sword if you want. Yeah. And then that makes it harder. Like you said, that makes it harder because it's like, you're in this assistant editing hole, which is good. People have careers of being assistant editors. But at the same time, if you want to get out of that, then digging deeper into the assistant editing hole is not going to get you out of it. And that's my story. And then I found $5. Anyway, because you've cut so many action films, but then also you kind of switch it up where I'm going to try to speak French here, so forgive me if I murdered this, but then you did something like La Uva, La Uva, La Uva, La
Uva, yes, but
that was like which is not an action film. It's more of like a dramatic like road film, and much more, I guess, dramatic without the action. So when I'm not assuming that you're like, you cut something like Taken 3 and then you're immediately jumping into something like this dramatic road film. How hard is it for you to kind of like shift gears? Whereas like you're in this action mode where in a sense it's like the hip hop concert where you're just like the beats. And then you get into this other rhythm where it's like more slowed down. Now we're breathing and we're like feeling everything.
On every project's beginning, I think many editors, I mean, speaking with friends, we are many people to feel like that. The first days of a new project, you always feel that you're such a bad editor because you cannot find the right pace. I mean, it takes time to understand what kind of movie you are on, even if you know, like, approximately, but you have to find it by starting to cut it. After the last episode of Lupin of season 1 that I cut, I worked on, I would say, more an independent movie, a French movie, talking about people in the south of Alps that were helping migrants to welcome migrants or refugees after they crossed the border in the mountains. So that's a heavy. I mean, it's a heavy story. It's not fun at all. It's not Lupin at all. I remember I had never worked with a director before. She was a writer. It was her first feature. And I remember they asked me while the shooting to send a first cut of a scene that they were not sure that they had enough shots. So I sent it, I edited it very quickly because they needed it by the end of the day. So I was cutting it to make sure that every angle was covered so they could decide if they needed more or not. And I was just coming out of Lupin, so I was especially if you are in the end of the editing process, you are trying to be efficient, fast, straight to the point. You're not trying to, you get the point. And I sent a cut that was maybe too much in the Lupin style. And it was one of the first scenes of the movie. And the director called me after the end of the day, and she said, "It's not my movie at all." And it was my second day of editing, and I was alone, and they were in the south of France in the Alps. And I was like, my God, maybe I will be bad for this job because maybe I'm not the person for the job. I decided to recut it straight away in the evening to understand what she wanted, what was the kind of movies that she had in mind. So I made the complete opposite, like long shots, too long, but to make sure that we were okay and understanding each other. And she called me at midnight. She received it like at 11 or something. She called me at midnight and she said, "Thank you. This is my movie. It's way too long, but I know that you can do both, that we can find the right balance for my movie." And so I was okay because I could sleep well and she could sleep well too. And I was not be fired right away. So it's difficult to start a very different project after the previous one because you have to get rid of your habits. And you change your habits because when I finished this movie, I went on another series that was mostly a comedy that was supposed to be fast-paced also. And the first day I was like, I'm so slow. I mean, my shots are so long. Because I just have to readapt.
Interesting.
That's super interesting. Yeah.
And then it's okay.
Yeah.
That's good.
Love it.
I mean, it proves that you're human. That it just doesn't you get.
Yes.
I mean, you create habits, obviously, with every project that you're working on, and then going into something new, you got to kind of relearn the flow of what you're doing, and of course, it would stay on and to the next, whatever the next project is. That's interesting.
Yeah, I remember a series that I was working on. The first one that I cut, it was after an action movie at Europa Corp that is called The Warrior's Gate. Actually, that's a German director who's called Matthias Höhn. I don't know if you know him. Anyway, he's great. And so that was an action movie. And when you are working on action movies produced by Luc Besson is in editing room at the end of the editing process, and he's asking you to cut, I'm exaggerating, but almost every silence. I mean, every moment that you are risking to get bored.
Interesting.
And then I was on this other show, and sometimes it was fast-paced, but sometimes the director wanted it was supposed to happen in the Afghanistan war with French soldiers, and sometimes he wanted not poetic moments, but with long shots of the roads and the soldiers doing nothing. That it was not boring, but it was contemplating. And I was like, are you sure? Are you sure? Because I was just scared of silence and long moments. And he was joking with me because he was saying, come on, you're a backup girl. I mean, you have to change your habits. Trust me.
Yeah, that's really something. Yeah.
I was cutting music videos. I cut it and I was like, okay, I'm just going to do a little bit of a color correction on it just to, whatever. And this is how it is. I got this email back that's just like, the guys, they don't know if you're the right editor for this. The color is, I don't even know. Did you even color it and whatever? And I was just like, what's happening? Why are you guys freaking out? I was like, they kind of told you what was happening. And then I was like, all right. And I just like crushed all the blacks and made it like super like contrasty. And they were like, that's it. This is exactly what we're looking for. Blah, blah. And it was like kind of the same thing that you had with your one director where she was like, this isn't my movie. And then you changed it. And it's like, this is it. You've done it.
Yes.
You're a genius.
You just have to talk. I mean, because we don't have we cannot guess everything from the very start without talking. When you start a project, you have to at least have a first try, and then you talk, and you start again if you need to.
That communication needs to be there, and then it kind of cultivates. You're creating a new relationship with somebody, and then that's how you figure things out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
As a chief editor, I edited 3 action movies at EuropaCorp, and then I was on the list for a comedy for children. When I had the interview with the director, he was like, yes, but you never cut a comedy for children. You mostly did action movies so far. And I had to reassure him and say, anyway, in the action movie, sometimes you have comedy beats or emotion beats or whatever. And it's not because I never did it. I'm supposed to adapt to the movie. And then he just needed to be reassured that maybe if I wasn't doing it properly, another editor could come in, like as a caution or I don't know. And we never had any problem. I mean, I cut the movie and it was okay. And we got along really well. And sometimes you cannot do a project and the people are asking you if you have any contacts or ideas of people that could do the job. And sometimes I'm talking about friends editors that I'm 100% sure that they would fit for the job. And the answer is, but they never did this kind of project, or
I get
and like, when on their IMDb, there's not this kind of, and you're like, that's a shame because I'm sure, and you should give them the chance, and sometimes they do, but sometimes they don't.
That's why it's hard.
Most of the time, and I think that's a shame.
That's why it's hard to get the break because like everyone is like, but you don't have that credit like for the similar thing. But you need to get that credit first. And if everyone is saying like, so it's like, it's a paradox, I guess.
Yeah, I've definitely had that in even like commercial stuff where they don't see a specific style of editing and then they just automatically assume that you can't do it. And it's just like, look at all this other stuff I've edited. And then, they can't think, they're like, oh, yeah, but...
Ultimately, it's telling story, right? Not like the style is something that comes with the story and is like distilled from a story. That's what the style is, right?
And it's not only your style as an editor. I mean, the style that I adopted with Megaton, for example, nobody ever asked me that style. Because that's his style. So as editors, because we are many editors to work with him, on Taken 3, we were 2 main editors and we had 2 or 3 additional editors. I mean, we all had to fit in the style. We could adapt sometimes better than other, but I mean, it was not my style. I tried to put sometimes things that I liked, but I cannot say this was my style. This is the style of the movie. Yeah. The last one that I edited, it's the same. It's not really my style. It's my feeling. It's my taste. it's sometimes my ideas, but I try to fit in the style of the movie itself. Maybe person that could say that that this is your style. It's mostly the director you're working with, because it's not about necessarily the style that you have in the result, but the style that you have in the relationship in the editing room, and that they sometimes they value some editors more than others, not because the result is far better, because they get along better in the editing room.
Yeah, trust and relationship. Yeah, get it.
It's the synergy. That's right.
Yes, exactly.
That's what we started this podcast with, actually, the episode about synergy between editor and director, because it's a big one. It's a big topic, very, very important one, I believe. Audrey, what's next for you?
I started a French show for Netflix, a new one. The director and writer and actor is his name is Jean-Pascal Zadi. I don't know if he's known across borders, but he made a movie 2 years ago that is called Tout simplement Noir, which would translate as simply black. It's a comedy, but also with political background. It's funny. It's cool.
Perfect.
I hope it's gonna be great. I mean, we just started, so
it's for Netflix as well. Awesome.
Yes,
awesome.
it's also for Netflix.
We'll be waiting for it then.
And I have another episode of Lupin that I just wrapped. The episode 2 of next season.
Nice.
So I know a lot of the story.
Do you know things we don't know?
You can tell us after we get off the call. Actually, no, don't, because I still need to watch season 2.
No, I'm not allowed to, unfortunately.
Thank you for doing it.
Thank you. I mean, it was a cool experience for me. I always like speaking
That's
about
great.
the job. So thank you, both of you.
I really enjoyed talking with Audrey because she's very down to earth. She's very easy to talk to. And we've been and I always say this after every interview that we do, but we're very lucky in the people that we talk to. I don't know. I can't say it enough. The insight that she gave us and her perspective. And I thought it's very interesting. Like, it's important to directors to have her perspective as a woman editor, as another person in the editing room that isn't the same as everybody else.
She does talk about the sensitivity, like specifically, right? And she states it in the podcast, like that it's not only like women domain, of course, right?
Right.
So I think that's something that we actually do not think about often. That sensitivity, our sensitivity as editors, is an asset that is like invaluable in the editing room. That's what we are very often like hired for.
Right.
We call it like, the second viewpoint or whatever, right? But really it's sensitivity, like, the way we feel the story, the way we feel the characters, the actors, like, the progression and things like that. All of it is really that makes us, who we are and and allows us to do what we do best in the editing bay. By the way, if you have questions that you would like us to ask future, editors on the podcast, send them over. I'm repeating it like, for the 4th or 5th time on the podcast, but we still didn't get any audio messages from you guys. And we wanted to, we wanted to celebrate with a glass of wine or whiskey or whatever, or with just a glass of milk, the fact that we got the first voice message that we can use in the podcast.
Yeah. We'll play it. We'll even play it, and you'll be podcast famous.
Yeah, you'll be the first
That's
one.
crazy.
So just do it. If you listen to it, like, you'll be the first one. I promise to you. So just go to that link in the description, to the SpeakPipe link, and record the message.
Or reach out to us on Instagram
or at podcast@cuttothepoint.com. All of these ways, you can choose.
So many. All right, everybody. Hope you have a great day. Take care.
Take care.
And like always,
happy editing. And
happy editing.
And as always, It is
And
always.
edit like there's no, shoot and edit like there's no tomorrow. We got the giggles at the end there, always.
Thanks for taking time out of your busy day.
If you like what you've heard, please rate, review, and subscribe on whatever podcast platform you've listened to this on. Your reviews help more people discover this show. You can also follow us on Instagram. Just search for @CutToReveal and tell your friends.
And if you have any questions or comments, send them to podcast@cuttothepoint.com. And who knows, maybe we'll use them in the future episodes. And as we say around here, until the next time, shoot and edit like there is no tomorrow.